Manohi. Trying to learn a bit about Sophists. Especially, we start looking at their tradition and their role in the context of our study of the book which we are studying, the philosophy book, which is standard textbook in our madrasas, Muinul Falsafa. But generally, we are interested in the role of Sophists. Okay, so this is from Blackwell dictionary. I'm just going to read to see if we can get something out of it. Sophists. Okay, Sophists are a tradition in Greek philosophy. It's from Greek Sophistis, from Sophos, which means wise. So it's the same word which we have in philosophy. So that's actually very interesting, um, because the association of the word sophist is more with sophistry rather than philosophy. Sophistry rather than philosophy. In other words, sophist has a derogatory connotation in English language, at least, and even in Arabic. On the other hand, falsafa and in Urdu and Farsi, I guess, as well, because they are closely related to the Arabic, to the classical Arabic, Islamic Arabic language. So that's interesting. On the other hand, philosophy has positive connotation, even though the roots of both words are the same. The same with certain, obviously, subtle difference. So, sophist, the word sophist come from Sophia, and ist is just the attribution device, and philosophy also come from Sophia. Sophie, this one, and phil mean friend or love. So philosophy mean the love of Sophia, and sophist mean who is actually wise. So I think the critique of sophists was that they claim to be wise. On the other hand, philosophers, they said we are not wise, but we love wisdom. So probably what they presumably objected to in sophist is, and that's what makes sophism a derogatory word, and sophist a derogatory word, and sophism look down upon tradition generally in philosophy, especially in ancient and medieval philosophy, is that they are arrogant. They are claiming to be wise. On the other hand, philosophers is humble. He's not saying that he has wisdom. He said he is just seeking for wisdom. He loves wisdom. Okay, so that's interesting, I thought. Okay, so ancient Greek philosophy, Greek Sophistes from Sophos and Sophia, initially any wise man, like a poet or seer or sage, but in the 5th century BC, a special term for a professional teacher. A professional teacher. So they were teachers of sort. Professional in the sense that that was their profession. They charged, they earned their living by teaching. I guess that's what they mean professional teacher, who wandered. So they were wanderers, like they didn't have a fixed place. They went wherever their students were. They could get from city to city to teach many non-traditional courses. I don't know what he means by non-traditional courses, including rhetoric and linguistics, which young Greeks needed to pursue political careers, especially with the rise of democracy. Public speaking became very important, so rhetoric. And they used to teach public speaking and rhetoric and how to, they used to teach how to win arguments. And Socrates and Plato criticized them for, on both of these accounts, that they criticized them because they charge money for teaching. So, according to Socrates and Plato, that wasn't a good thing. And they also criticized them because they claim that Sophists are not seeking truth; they just want to win an argument at all, at all, um, at all cost. I mean, at all cost. So Sophists charge their student for this service. At that time, the term did not have a derogatory sense at the start, although some other sources say that even in as back as the Homeric period, Sophism had a derogatory sense as well. So that's not clear. The Sophists did not form a sect. So for example, Islamic texts call them a sect or a school, and a lot of ancient texts call them a school as well. But Sophists weren't a sect or a school, They were more like a movement, general movement. And many of them were not philosophers. I mean, we don't even know whether philosophy as a separate discipline even emerged at the time, Because philosophy included everything. Among the most famous sophists were Protagoras, Gorgias, Thrasymachus, Prodicus, and Hippias. And some of them you can recognize from this appears in Plato's Republic, and these are the names of two of the Platonic dialogues. So a lot of our information comes through Plato. Only in the next generation, that is, in the generation of after Plato, in the generation of Plato and after Plato, sophists acquire unfavorable sense that it still bears today. And this change largely resulted from the hostile propaganda of Plato. I mean, propaganda of Plato and Aristotle obviously is very crucial, it seems, for the unfavorable reception of sophists, not only among Muslims, not only among Greek philosophers and Western philosophy earlier, but in medieval philosophy as well as in Islamic philosophy, who accuse, because obviously in Muslim world, philosophy was mainly Aristotelian philosophy for a long time, and a bit of Plato as well. So this change largely resulted from the hostile propaganda of Plato and Aristotle, who accused the sophists of making money for their teaching. Money for their teaching. And of neglecting higher values by teaching techniques in mainly at winning debates. So they neglected truth. So you can say in a sense that they like today they were technocrats according to Aristotle and Plato, and they neglected more moral virtues and moral values, as well as the dedication to truth and truth for its own sake. Many sophists are target of irony in Plato's dialogues, where they are distinguished from the practitioners of serious intellectual pursuits. One thing we should remember is that Socrates was actually the opponents of Socrates. That's an important point. So the opponents of Socrates, for example, actually accused him of being a sophist, and not without reason, because a lot of Socratic methods and techniques, which obviously have come to us largely through Plato's dialogues, his students' dialogues, bear uncanny resemblance to the method of Sophists. And that's why I think, and obviously Socrates denied that and Plato denied that. So that's why I think one of the reason Plato is so harsh on Socrates, Sophists, because he wants to distinguish his teacher's enterprise and by and his own enterprise from sophist enterprise, and that actually led him to exaggerate the difference between his method and Socrates' method and sophistic methods, I guess. Okay, so many sophists are target of irony in Plato's dialogues, where they are distinguished from the practitioners of serious intellectual pursuits. However, from the scant information we possess, like we don't have their own writings, with us. We have just a few sketches here and there. It seems that the Sophists together formed a loose movement. They weren't a school or sect that was skeptical in tradition and having some features of an enlightenment. And that's very important. And that's what interests us in Sophists, interests me in Sophists. That is, they were skeptics towards the tradition, that is, the tradition of philosophy. And they were the bearer of enlightenment in that sense. So I think, for example, Plato claimed that you can actually reason for both Plato and Aristotle, even though they have certain different notion of what reason is. That doesn't matter. They have this belief that you can know everything with certainty at at the end of the day, on the basis of reason. So if you use reason properly, you can arrive at a true worldview, true view about the nature of things, about the nature, about human beings, about their relationship, everything. In a sense, you can have a whole way of life, whole religion, whole what we call deen, based on not based on conventions or hunches, but based on reason, based on truth. And you don't need anything other than reason or beyond reason to arrive at this truth. That was Aristotle's and Plato's position, and the position held by many Muslim and Christian philosophers, and even early modern philosophers. Uh, and Sophists weren't against reason as such, but they were skeptical that solely on the basis of reason you can. Firstly, they were skeptical, I think, if there is we have any agreed upon notion of one reason. Probably there are many reasons. So they were pluralist in that sense. And a lot of our worldviews, or part of our worldviews, were based on convention rather than reason. So they were skeptical. I mean, they doubted that they were rational people. They taught things based on reason, and they were in that sense rational and people, or followers of reasons, or like Plato, but they didn't have this overconfidence in reason which Plato and Aristotle had. And they thought that probably some of the things we learn from reason, but a lot of things are based on our habits and conventions and just contingent facts. And human beings, the limitations of human beings and their reason is such that we can never arrive at the full truth based on reason. And which is ironic again, because if they were considered arrogant for calling themselves sophists, if we mean by sophists that people who claim to be wise, although sophist can also mean one who exercises wisdom or learning, it is ironic that it seems like they are the one who were more humble, and Plato and Socrates are the one who are more arrogant in that. So they were skeptical towards the claim of reasons to be the ultimate infallible source of the truth. And in that sense, because they were critical in their attitude, we can say that they have enlightened. They were, upholding critical virtue of enlightenment. They were maintaining certain distance towards the tradition of philosophy and learning in which they were, they grew up. And in that sense, these sophists resembles, for example, skeptics all, throughout the history. So, for example, in today's world, for example, people like Nietzsche, they were great admirers of sophists, because Nietzsche was a sophist of a sort towards the Enlightenment tradition of Kant and Hegel. Not that he rejected that tradition, but he tried to tame the overconfidence of that tradition in a similar way in which sophists try to tame the overconfidence of the Platonic and Aristotelian tradition. And similarly, all other movement within Western thought, for example, postmodernism's attitude towards modernism can be, understood. One way to understand postmodernism is to see them as sophists, modern day sophists towards modernism, etc. Okay, so they made important contribution. So together found a loose movement that was skeptical towards the tradition and having some features of an enlightenment. They made important contributions to the history of thought in fields such as grammar and linguistic theory, moral and political doctrine, and the theory of nature and origin of man and society. Because no writing survived from any of the sophists, it is difficult to correct the traditional prejudice against them. And here is a pithy quote from Guthrie's book, The Sophists. A sophist writes or teaches because he has a special skill or knowledge to impart. His Sophia, that is his wisdom is practical, whether in the field of conduct or politics or technical arts. So they taught useful skills like public speaking, rhetoric, debate, argumentation, practical argumentation, and how to, rebut the arguments or the claims of your opponents and all those things. Okay, so that was good.